This is an interesting look at possible issues going forward. Now, it doesn't have all the regional banks. As a matter of fact, it doesn't have most of them, but this is just the S&P 500 banks and their insured deposits as of, well, the end of the year, last year. So you can see, obviously, SVB. You can see Signature Bank. You can see FRC. Obviously, those are the ones that have are no longer with us. Pour some out for the dead homies. After that, first of all, you got to look at the ones that are too big to fail. Obviously, Citi is too big to fail, right? JP Morgan. But let's just look at the baseline. So in the pink there, we got all banks. This is the amount of insured deposits that they have, right? So a little more than 50% for the average bank, it would seem, has, or at least in the S&P 500, has all their 50% of their deposits are insured. On the higher end, you got Regions Financial, who I actually thought Regions Financial was one of the ones that was a little more in trouble, but maybe not so much. They have a decent amount of deposits that are insured, greater than 60%. Wells Fargo is obviously too big to fail. We're not even going to count them in this. Bank, same thing, JP Morgan and Citi, right? We're looking at some of these other ones. Let's look on the lower end. Let's look at those that are under the average of all banks, right? So MTB and CFG, I mean, those are still above 50%, but KeyBank under 50%. USB, which is one that has been struggling more recently, under 50%. And if you have your trusty platform and you start looking at some of these, right? KeyBank, 61 IVR, stock is under 10, not looking so good right now. USB, who I thought was pretty healthy, actually scooped some of these shares and put it in an IRA. Still think it might be healthy, but I don't know. Looking at this, it makes you wonder. Under 50% of their deposits are insured. Yikes. And again, this has an 87.9 IVR right now, very high IVR. Just for S's and G's, as they say, looking at JP Morgan, 24 IVR, and certainly a lot more healthy than some of these other banks you would imagine, especially if it's taking on risk by going after the FRCs, for example, right? Zion Bank. 102 IVR, not looking good in Zion Bank right now. Where is Zion Bank, by the way? Anybody bank with Zion? I'm curious. Anybody know about them? I'm just curious. I've never seen a Zion Bank in person. CMA, another one, 86 IVR, $36 right now. It did have a little bounce today, but very little. These are all kind of retreated some from their highs. But yeah, CMA is one that has about 40% of its deposits that are insured, and it's higher IVR right now. Consequently, it is one I am looking at possibly. I'm starting to eye some of these up for some chances. Now that a lot of the fear is gone, not gone, but now that things have calmed down from last week, right? I feel like there was a second crescendo last week in the fear in these banks. I'm looking at maybe selling some vol in some of these. We'll see. We'll see. But I just thought this was an interesting look at the top banks, the ones that are in the S&P 500. Now, mind you, this doesn't add Western Alliance Bank, which, again, a lot of these have been some of the West Coast banks, right? The FRC was West Coast, Western Alliance, PACW was West Coast. Those have been some of the ones, I think, mostly because they're the ones that did these really they did these loans where basically they were kind of lower interest rate to higher net worth clients that they didn't necessarily have to pay a large amount on the principal for them. So those are some of the loans that really got some of these guys in trouble, and it's still obviously haunting them now. PacWest is 86 IVR. It's under $7. Wall is still fairly elevated at $28. I mean, obviously, that's way off from where the stock was trading initially, around $80 or so before this whole thing went down, $74, $80. But 67 IVR for Wall. So, yeah. Who's next? I don't know. It's hard to say. But after PACW and Wall, I'd be careful with CMA to some degree as far as how you're trading it. Be careful with Zion and maybe USB for the time being. Be careful how you trade. It doesn't mean you don't have to trade it. Just be careful. That's all. Let's move ahead to the next slide.